Okay, we're all set to get into our next panel discussion titled The New Philanthropy, CSR as a Catalyst for Inclusive Deep Tech Ecosystems. I'd like to welcome on stage Mr. Kumar Anurag Pratap, Vice President, Digital Inclusion and Sustainability Leader and CSR Head. At Capgemini India, he's had 29 years of experience driving community development and impact initiatives. He leads large-scale digital inclusion programs enabling sustainable and technology-driven social impact. Welcome, sir. Can we give all of our panelists a round of applause as each of them comes to the stage? We also have with us Mr. Sanjay Sampath, CEO of Green Curve Consulting. He is a sustainability and environmental strategy expert with 25 plus years of experience in ESG, climate risk, and industrial sustainability. He's the founder of Green Curve Consulting, advising global companies on net zero strategy, carbon management, and environmental compliance. Next, I'd like to welcome Ms. Aditi Gaitonde, People Experience CSR Lead EPAM. She drives sustainability, inclusion, and employee engagement initiatives. She focuses on building purpose-driven, inclusive workplaces through impact-led programs in CSR, DEI, and well-being. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Balakumar Thangavelu, Head CSR Cognizant. With 20 plus years of experience in technology, strategy, and social impact, he leads outreach and volunteering initiatives across India, driving large-scale CSR programs and ESG integration. And rounding out our panel is Ms. Radhika Ramesh, COO of Wilgrow. She's a seasoned operations leader with 25 plus years of experience across multinational and development sectors, currently serving as COO at Wilgrow Innovations Foundation, leading core functions and program delivery. With experience in scaling operations and stakeholder management, she also brings global consulting experience and a strong commitment to social impact and community initiatives. Moderating this panel is Mr. Rohit Batra, Vice President Head, Commercial Projects, IHFC, TIH of IIT Delhi. Can we have a round of applause? This is quite a panel we have on stage. So, Mr. Batra, you have your hands full. Over to you.
The clapping is not motivating us, so you guys have to clap it more, right? The panel, I was having a chat outside, and we were actually discussing why this session is actually at this hour, why not the hour earlier. But we will try engaging you as much as possible, for this event. So please contribute and let's get maximum out of this panel, right? So before I start, I can see people coming from multiple backgrounds. So I want to set a context so that all of you are actually on the same page. And then maybe, we could actually, have the minds of each of the panels out over there. So this topic is about CSR, right? Now, as you know, in India, you have to actually spend 2% of your net profit, in CSR. And this is for the organizations where the net worth is more than 1,000 crores and their net profit is more than 5 crores per annum. So averagely for 3 years, whatever is your net profit is what you need to consume in the CSR space. We currently have around 25,000 organizations which are actually contributing to CSR, and the total fund value till last year was around 35,000 crores, which was actually spent. Now, I will also run upon which all are the sectors where the CSR is actually getting spent. Top 2 sectors which are actually where the CSR is getting spent is around education and healthcare, which is almost around 60% of the total CSR which gets spent. And the top organizations which are contributing to this CSR is HDFC, Reliance, TCS, ONGC, Tata Steels. They almost actually contribute to 30% of the total CSR. Now, coming to the main topic of today's discussion, that while we are actually spending a huge amount of CSR in the space of education, rural development and healthcare, the government has also mandated us that a portion of your CSR can be used for R&D as well. And as we speak, the contribution in that is very low. And that is actually the topic of today's discussion, that why is it that in spite of the fact that government giving us a mandate that you could actually use your CSR fund in R&D, in today's date, less than 1% of the total fund is actually getting, used in R&D. And I have panels here who will disagree, but I think we would actually talk to them and get their mind share on that. Now, I also want to actually talk about organizations who are actually spending in R&D. There are organizations like Cummins, Capgemini. I think Anurag sir is there and he would talk about it. Persistence, Cipla, Microsoft, who are actually spending in R&D, and therefore we want to sort of get a sense that what is it that they actually look in while they are actually spending on CSR. So over to the panelists, and I will start with Anurag sir. Why is it that there is so less amount today spent on R&D? You'll have to still tell it to me, sir. I know you disagree with me, but you still have to, talk about it, sir.
No, the reason is very simple. The reason is when in a tech summit like this, if your CSR session is at the fag end of the day, you will never get the CSR funding.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
No, I'm known as someone who usually do not play like Gavaskar, bat pat together. So I don't play very defensive there. Yeah. So if CSR is only used for financial thing, you will never get the CSR fund. Yeah. CSR needs to be, I always advise people that treat CSR as your friend there. Someone with whom you can share your notes, share your disappointments, share your disgust, share your pain. And once you start sharing the whole thing, you build a relationship, and then gradually that particular friend may come up with a story saying that, okay, I'll fund you. You bore him till death by sharing your miseries. But if you start the discussion by saying that, hey, I need $10 from your pocket, no one is going to give you money. Because it's just like any relationship that we get in. If the first meeting itself, we talk about how much fund you will give to me for the project of mine, that individual on the other side will not be very, very interested in what you are asking. If you share with him the kind of changes that you have brought in, or the kind of dream that you are having, or kind of nightmare that you are going through, or kind of struggle that you are witnessing, and then gradually build up a relationship where that individual is willing to, or that entity is willing to support, then magic will happen. That's one. Second, I do not agree with less than 1%. I've been saying in number of places, it depends on how you are defining R&D. I may be looking at tech for social good as R&D there. I may be looking at improvement in the delivery of my project, maybe maybe one of the R&D. I may be looking at, for example, in education, the STEM work that one is doing, the kind of STEM instrument that I'm bringing in, the STEM experiment that I'm bringing in. I may be looking or treating that as R&D there. You may be looking at R&D from a very classical definition there, where you may put up that as 1% there. Third, and which is the most difficult, the main reason why one gets that 1% or less than 1% number there is because in the reporting structure provided by MCA to all the corporate, which is known as CSR2, CSR2 does not differentiate R&D there. It talks about Schedule 7 activities where I have spent my money in. So in health and education, when you say 60% money has gone in there, if you unpack that health and education, you'll suddenly realize that 20% of that 60% is more is on R&D of health and education there. So there is a huge amount of work that people have done, but the CSR2 framework does not allow us to put that particular expenses under R&D there. Hope this answers or...
I'm convinced about it, don't worry.
No, it's not about, I've said this in all the forums there. Treat CSR with respect there. And this is one particular thing which I share with a room where you may have some professors sitting there. You may be the wisest individual on this earth. But unfortunately, money is there with someone else. You need to become friend with the other individual also who may be sitting with money there. If you start treating the other individual who may be having the money with huge amount of contempt or huge amount of, I'll say, thinking that you don't know anything, I know everything, then money will not flow to you. Money will only flow when you start treating the other individual also at par with you. And at par, and CSR is all about working in collaboration there. Someone may bring in money, someone will bring in expertise, someone will bring in engagement, someone will bring in community, someone will bring in something else. And the moment you add all these things together, then only magic will happen.
Your thoughts, sir?
So I think I'll add on to what he said. I bring a slightly different perspective, and the perspective is having been on the foundations of many international companies, more so based in the US, and also a very different perspective of having been the CEO of a startup which was incubated at IIT, where I was reaching out to Indian companies for some of this funding. So I did my first 20 years as the person who, among other things, as voluntary function, gave out grants. And on the other side, I wanted to learn about the Indian ecosystem, especially some of the more prominent Indian ecosystems. And then I tried the CEO role, and I found a completely different perspective in that. So my response to your question is that the truth lies somewhere in between. And I'll tell you why. Money may be going, I don't think the 1% is accurate. But one very easy conversation with the individuals on this panel led me to believe that that number actually comes to about 300 crores. And they already know that the funding going into R&D is far, far greater than that. Now, one exercise for one of the students at some point of time who are here might be to find out what that number actually is. Because right now, based on what we know, that number is 1%. So that's one exercise, but that's a tangent.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%. And basically, so that what that means is there's no official study that's been done to corroborate the point of two very senior individuals who feel that the number is far, far greater than that. So that's one thing.
He explained it to me, looks like that it is more than 10%, but then the data which I have.
Exactly. So more studies need to be done on that. But at the same time, bringing my perspective of someone who was looking for funding into a deep tech R&D, the company I was heading was going to solve the air quality problems of Chennai to start off with. We had beautiful equipment which we could put in the center of the traffic, and basically it would suck out the air pollution from that. And I cannot tell you how much I struggled in reaching out to different CEOs and CSOs in that role, trying to get funding. Now, granted, they've given me a perspective which I didn't engage in, because I was new to the ecosystem in India. So what they've told me is the way you approached it was probably incorrect. You focused more on your technology rather than the problem that it was solving. And I think that's a deep learning to have, and that's my perspective. So now I don't no longer play that role. I went back to my original role. But for 1 year I was doing that. It was for any of you trying to do that, I think that's a big lesson to learn from these industry pioneers.
Yeah, Aditi, your thoughts?
So I'm rather a small cog in the wheel to say whether it's 1%, 3% or more. I also come from a very traditional CSR space. Very recently, I've been introduced to the social impact innovation piece. I can tell you two things that kind of struck with me, which a large chunk of CSR comes from big corporations, but there is also some that comes from fairly newly mandated corporates, or those who are, for the lack of a better word, clueless as to how to go about the spaces that they want to work in. And for them, a low-hanging fruit is go to an NGO, or whichever NGO reaches out to you. They have a stack of projects, which they will tell you how the monitoring and evaluation will happen, what are we going to do, and they will usually go in for something like that. So that is one thing. The second one would be R&D, and the innovation space has a lot of complexities when it comes to the social and legal aspects of CSR. So we need to find some kind of a translator, like an incubator, who can help us bridge that gap. So these are the two thoughts that I had about why CSR is not really getting it.
Bala, sir.
Thank you all. Thanks for this opportunity. And to start with, Sir shared about some of the facts about CSR, right? CSR came into existence in 2014, and when this law came into existence for all companies that are registered in India under Indian Companies Act, a new section 135 and schedule 7 was introduced. And all of a sudden, 2% of 3 years average profit you'll have to give back to the community was the rule Ministry of Corporate Affairs gave it to all the corporates. There were no role that was existing in a company. There was nobody who was trained to do corporate social responsibility in an organization. People who were in the HR department were given as an additional role. People who were in the company secretary were given additional role. Some places the CFOs took up the additional role. Some places anybody in the role who wanted to take up that role, they adopted it. So nobody knew what exactly we were supposed to do. And we all learned that, okay, there is some money that is out, we can do good to the community. We looked into the, and that point of time when it was launched, that 5-kilometer recommendation was also there. If you want to do corporate social responsibility, a recommendation from Ministry of Corporate Affairs said, you do something good to the community around 5 kilometers of your organization. So you use your air, water, land, people around that 5-kilometer radius, do good to the 5-kilometer radius. And people started looking into the 5-kilometer radius, they went to the school, there was no toilet or toilet was not clean, they went and built that. They rejuvenated the lake. They helped the primary healthcare center upgrade it. So first few years, like Aditi was telling, clueless. It was a statutory mandate and everybody had to spend that money and everybody found out ways to spend the money. After 5 years down the lane into it is when corporates learned that, hey, there are implementation partners. You can do CSR in 2 ways. Not just directly do it, you can do also through implementation partners. Then there are veterans who are in the industry, in the field, NGOs who have been doing amazing work. There are 3.3 million NGOs registered in India. And out of which around 1.8 lakh NGOs are active under NGO Darpan Niti Aayog registered and active in India. We don't have doctors for 400 citizens, we have an NGO for every 400 citizens. So that's how NGOs are there in India. And so many are there and so many are doing great work. That's when corporates started exploring, okay, let me collaborate with them. They are the subject matter experts. Let me collaborate with them and then give the funds to them. So we moved on to that implementation partner phase. Until 2020, things were like slowly evolving. And after 2021, there was an amendment that came into the law saying that, boss, you have been spending money in crores. But if you are spending a project value more than 1 crore with like a 3 years average of 10 crores of CSR fund, do a third-party impact assessment. You tell me, how did you spend the money and what impact you made? It was an evolution from clueless to doing impact assessment. All of a sudden, impact assessment for a CSR person. He has to go and learn what is log framework analysis, what is OECD DAC framework. So, 13 years into this role, all of us have evolved from clueless to certification. So now, as I speak today, I am an SEBI certified social impact auditor. So now I can go and ask my NGO that, what is the KPI? What is the metric that you are using to measure a project? So that evolution has happened. Now, 2025 onwards, after all this impact assessment has come, now we have started looking into root causes. Because enough of cliched CSR, enough of constructing toilets, enough of doing same plumbing, same waiting area. Let us understand why IMR and why MMR is high in a particular region. Understand the root cause. And let us invest in that root cause and then let us solve the problem to bring that number. Infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate. That's what IMR and MMR for people who do not know. So why the death rate is high and low? So we have started focusing on root causes now. So this evolution of 13 years, now from 2025 onwards, we have started looking into the root causes And that solution that we are bringing, co-creating with NGO partners, is what to us is defined as R&D. And that might not typically come into the R&D part of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs solution. So that's where this evolution has happened, and this evolution will continue to happen, and more investment towards research and development, identifying the root cause and producing solutions for that will happen. So that's where like people like IIT Delhi and all incubation centers have to play the vital role of telling the corporates that educate us. Your role is to educate us. There are so many problems out there. There are root causes that can be solved. Come together. Let us solve the problem. That's where we look upon you. And going forward, this less than 1% will sure shot increase, sir. That's what I look at.
Anurag sir has some point.
No, I'm not agreeing to there. It was never in the law which said 5 kilometer. It was never there. 5 kilometer mandate. It was never there. Not even recommendation was there. They use the word your immediate periphery that you should be spending your money in. They never defined it 5 kilometer. That one. Second is that CSR, when it started with some of the corporate praying every day, saying that it should go away after 2 years, 3 years. It didn't go away after 3-4 years or so. It continued there. After 4th year or 5th year, it became more stringent there. Earlier, it was just to, if you're not spending, you report it. Then it came in saying that if you're not spending, if you're not reporting it, then there will be a criminal offense against you. Then that got mellowed down a bit there. But then it said that if you're not spending, and if you reported it also, but if you're not made commitment, then you need to give it back to the government there. So that's where after 2017-18, the jump in CSR allocation increased manifold there. So if you do a research there, 2014 we started with around 14-15,000 crore, and then gradually every year it started climbing up. After 2017, it climbed to 28,000 crore, and then it's around 35 to 40,000 crore that's hovering around. There was initial, I'll say, inertia which was there within the corporate to respond to this particular thing. But I'll say after 4 or 5 years of that law becoming, I'll say, a strong instrument for social change there, people have started creating their own ways of utilizing it, creating change and creating impact there. But it's still a baby there. It's just 13-year-old. It requires huge amount of support and impetus there, and which a number of companies are doing it. But the act never restricted people to talk about a 5 kilometer there, because when I framed policy in 2014, it said very clearly that I'll use minimum of 80% of my CSR fund in the immediate periphery. Immediate periphery for me was 50 kilometer, 50. Because it was not defined in the act. It just said immediate periphery of yours. And 20% maximum, I'll use it for national causes, which will be pan-India, anywhere I can do it there. And many of the companies use that particular thing to do it. So it was not restricted to 5 kilometer anywhere there.
So, good evening to everybody. Thank you, Bala, for setting the context about the NGOs and the plethora of NGOs that we have in the country today. I have a slightly different perspective on R&D, in the sense that I believe, so in Wilgrow, we are about 40% of our funding source is CSR and 60% is FCRA, which is obviously likely to change given all the geopolitical changes. I think funding that goes towards incubators and NGOs that are clearly social impact focused are in a sense R&D in themselves. For example, what Mr. Anurag was talking about earlier, where he's worked with enterprises that have used robotics to solve the problem of human intervention when it comes to cleaning drainages, right? We're using robotics to understand non-revenue generating water and other challenges around waste and water management. All of that comes with a lot of investment in looking at solutions that can actually be embedded in today's real life scenarios like ULBs or municipalities that are already struggling with huge challenges. Agricultural waste is a huge challenge. You ask anybody in Delhi and you talk about air pollution, it's huge. But we are all sitting in cities and we don't see what happens with agricultural waste. We need innovation there. There are innovations there. And what incubators do is to bring these innovations up front, evaluate them, and then co-create solutions with impact numbers along with philanthropic money or CSR funding. Good incubation is about co-creating these goals and these impact targets along with the CSR provider, having them a part of the jury to evaluate what these solutions can actually mean. But at the end of the day, these are all R&D projects to me. They may be at different TRL levels, but they are all pilots that are embedded into real life situations, and you see whether the pilot does well. And what the CSR funding does is to de-risk that solution. And therefore, their contribution is really critical in having those solutions actually researched and then tested and then developed, because there's a T in between the R&D. They need to be tested for efficacy, for impact, for scale, and for commercial viability. That's my perspective.
So are you in agreement that it's not 1%, it's greater than 5%?
It's definitely not 1%. It's definitely a lot more.
Anurag says.
I know it is not 1%, sir. Any given day,
Yeah, it's definitely not 1%. It's a lot more.
Okay, so I think I'll start with Adhika with the next question. So what does CSR continue to focus, why does CSR continue to focus still on safe and predictable areas? I mean, you guys are actually associated with CSR. Why is it that even today they are actually looking for things which are high impact, requires less intervention, and they still focus? Why is it that R&D piece is not actually coming out of it? I mean, why is it that they are actually still focusing on safe and predictable areas? Today, let's say CSR heads or CSR managers.
Yeah, but that's true with even a pure R&D setup, right? You want to focus on and build on something that's actually going to get you the impact. So it makes a lot of logical sense for CSR funding to actually come in and support those. And the impact could be anything. It could be agricultural waste. It could be soil health in the agri space. It could be waste or waste segregation. We've had enterprises setting up biogas plants where organic waste is used to generate electricity. The residue is used as fertilizer. We've had the luxury of working, or the good fortune of working with a big bank that has supported and de-risked this new solution and innovation and taken it to different locations. Now, that's the role that CSR plays of de-risking something that is innovative, but that's R&D in its own sense.
I'm going back to the same thing that today when you're talking in terms of CSR, I agree from your point that, you know, even when you're talking in terms of education, healthcare, somewhere the R&D is involved, so it's not 1%, it is greater than 5% and 10%. I'm still actually asking that why is it's still put in a conventional way and doing same things over and over, you know,
I disagree with
you don't agree.
I don't agree that it's considered. In fact, if anything,
you think there is an innovation which is happening?
There is a lot of innovation and a lot of risk taking, especially at the CSR funding level that I've seen, at least in the last 2 years, where I see CSR's heads getting more involved in the actual process of incubating startups, in the kind of impact that they want to achieve, and bringing sense to it. Obviously, from the corporate side of it, you bring in the measurement and the management of the impact that you want to create, and it's great to see the involvement and the fact that you want to get certified and want to be a part of that entire process to see that impact happening in the ecosystem.
So I think there's a comfort in the known. So maybe there are a few organizations that may look at it as high risk to put into something like social impact innovation. There's also a cultural bit to it. So for example, at EPAM, I see a lot of culture of innovation and education throughout all the processes we do. So that is also one of the reasons why we've sort of actively gone out and are working in the social impact innovation piece.
So if I can add on, the question is why CSR still cliched, still looking into education, healthcare, environment projects, right?
Sorry, I'm saying something else. I'm saying,
Keep the mic to you, please. There.
am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, and I'm not debating to what any of you are actually saying. I'm only saying, are we putting innovation to it, is what my question is. Or to whatever I know of it, that it is typically more conventional, that, this is my CSR fund, I'm going to use it in a particular way. And I've been using it for quite some time, and I will continue to use it. Now, you guys are actually from let's say IT or from that background. I respect that, right? But I'm saying typical organizations, my sense is that they still go through a conventional way. That I want to create toilets, I want to do some education, and my 2% obligation is over and I am out of it. I understand you come from an IT technology background where innovation is the core, right? But this is a general question I'm asking. I mean, are people putting innovation of how to utilize the CSR fund, or is it still that low risk, high impact, it gives us visibility and the job is over?
Yeah. So to your question, we cannot generalize things in this sector. There are companies who are doing CSR as a checklist activity. That is statutory now, March 31st, I will have to complete it, I will do it, I will send the money to PM Cares, close it, put up it. There are companies who are doing it for their branding purposes. I will go construct toilet, I will go paint the walls, I will put my logo comes front. Certain companies do it for branding. Certain companies are doing it for purpose. It is even beyond CSR. For example, Cognizant, right? Our Cognizant Foundation was formed 22 years back. We did not even knew that something like Indian Section 135 is going to come. So it was culturally driven. And philanthropy is in all our bloods, all our the Indian founders, all of them have been there. Like Tata Trust is there for decades now. So some companies, purpose-driven organizations are moving towards innovation, moving towards solving problems and all of that. If you talk about the 27,000 companies who are currently qualified and then spending CSR money, the 35,000 crores that was spent last year, right? Majority of them would be still in the evolution phase. In that phase, their seniors, their forefathers are people who were looked upon. They would tell that, boss, in CSR, always have an exit criteria. Do you have an exit criteria for the project? What will happen if I stop funding next year? Will that project go away or die? Will it sustain? So that exit criteria plays a role in deciding a project. And after end of 1 year, if I'm into some healthcare project or education project, 1 year I can see something tangible. But in a research project, in an R&D project, I can't see something tangible at the end of it. So that is one notion, probably that a lot of the CSR ecosystem needs a lot of education, that there is some tangible impact that can be witnessed. Unless you invest in R&D, you will not be able to see a scaled impact is something that the ecosystem needs to be educated as well. So I'm telling, right, we are evolving, 13 years old baby, we are all trying to parent that baby. So we all also needs to be educated, and that's where your role comes into.
Can I make it more provocative there? Why CSR should do R&D? Why the colleges are doing R&D today? Because in the NAC rating and NIRF rating, the scores of weightage of R&D is huge there, hence they need to do this particular thing. Why CSR should do R&D there? CSR ambit is to ensure that the base of pyramid communities should get the basic services there. The aim and intent is that I'll ensure that health, education, skilling, things which make the life of people at the base of pyramid become useful there. if the research institutions are looking for debt-free, equity-free, no burden finances in their hand, then they should reach out to the CSR in a more engaging fashion rather than demanding that you should fund R&D there. Why should I fund R&D there? I'll fund R&D when that R&D is linked to changing the lives of people in a very impactful manner. Who is going to decide that it's going to change the lives of people in a very impactful manner? So the R&D problem statement or R&D or areas where R&D will happen, is the institutions are sitting with CSR to define that particular thing? Are you sitting with NGOs to define in which are the areas where R&D is needed there? If you yourself is going to decide that, hey, I'll do R&D on this and CSR should fund it, CSR will never fund it. Because that is your baby, you need to find the milk for that particular baby. If the baby is jointly owned, then the CSR will come in there to do that particular work together. Problem, sir, is that everyone is sitting at the high horses level, high pedestal, and asking CSR to fund everything that they are doing. And this particular phenomena that I see at the district collector office, at the department secretary office, at the Nayab Tehsildar's office, at the block Pramukh office, at the Sarpanch office, and now at the Chancellor office there, everyone is saying that you will give a CSR fund to us there. Why? And that is where I always tell people is define the priorities there. Define it collectively. If one is saying, if I have worked in, for example, I was, when you were talking about 1%, and my take was, if you are doing a research in the desert of Rajasthan to look at how the heat is impacting the life of people, your numbers will say something else. If I am sitting at Kulu and doing this particular research about heat, the research will say something else, the numbers will say something else. So we need to also make our sample size or the research areas or the information from where I am collecting becomes very, very explicit, become very, very open to everyone there. And last, my request to all of you is that whenever you are reaching for any funding from any source, any funding, whether it's money lender, whether it's your own parents, whether your own partner, whether your own family members, you reach out to them not in a very, I'll say, in a manner which says that, hey, you need to give it to me. You reach out where you say that, can we now collectively sit together and identify where the funding should be allocated to? I do not see that happening there. The universities or the IITs who have done this particular thing, they are flush with money. The number of them, if you reach out to them, the annual CSR offtake of that particular institution is plus 200 crores there. And if I add 3-4 IITs there, so your 1% will go to dumps there. If you add their numbers itself, don't add the chota innovation center, incubation center that Niti Aayog has come out with. And all of them are doing it in a more collective manner. All those IITs who are not getting money are those IITs who thought that based on their brand, the CSR heads will queue up outside their offices with the check in their hand. That will never happen.
So it doesn't happen, ask me.
That's where I said that the IITs or any research or any university who are looking for CSR fund, they need to become more humble. They need to become more engaging. They need to, I'll say, bring everyone together and for that particular point when we are really seeking fund, you need to also understand the nuances of why someone is funding some activity and not funding this particular activity. The moment you understand that, this particular thing will become easier there. And corporate will fund activities where I'll have to show it to the world that I'm doing something good. Universities are also coming out every year with a news full-page advert saying that so many people topped. This is my rating. So why then you put corporate in that particular ambit to say that, hey, corporates are doing this. So Bala, I don't agree when you say that, hey, corporate, they are corporate like this, they are corporate like this. You need to also start by saying that there are universities like this, there are media houses like this, there are training centers like this, there are research institutions like this there. Then I'll take it CSR like this. But you can't brand CSR as someone where you'll only ask for fund, and if you don't get the fund, then you say that, hey, CSR is not responsive there. That's not the correct definition, I'll say interpretation of the hard work that people like us who have done. It's 13 years now. I travel at least 100 days. So there's huge amount of work that there are, and I'm not the only one. There are a number of CSR heads who are doing this particular work.
So, I think it shows the passion that all these individuals have. I think.
I have 10 questions. I don't know whether I can cover another one more or not.
You can jump in. This is last session. You can go. There's nothing else after this. Anyway,
There is one session after this of mine as well. Yeah.
So, okay, so I'll just make this particular comment, is I actually agree with a lot of your points. I know the doyens probably don't of the technology industry, but if you kind of go away from the IT sector and go into some of the other sectors, and I think people here will agree that about 60%, the number was thrown, that about 60% of the CSR heads really don't know what they're doing. And I think that number is probably even more, to be very honest. They've just been put in a spot. And this number was actually raised in one of our earlier panels, as you're aware of. So how do you approach those people? I mean, it's not their fault that they're in the spot that they're at, right? So you have a huge opportunity there. And I think I just have 2 or 3 points that I want to say. It's like if you were to approach your dad for money, you want to ask for 2 or 3 things, right? You've got to show what your problem statement is. And that is something that everyone here agrees with, is that the problem statement has to be clear. It should not be that I'm developing this technology, but this is the problem that I'm addressing. And in the pre-panel session, there were some examples given that were wonderful. And the other thing is, if it's not your dad, make sure you network. And that's another thing that Bala sir raised earlier too, is, if you don't network, and you also raised it very succinctly, why should you give money to someone, queuing up at their door, no matter what the reputation is? So I think with that, I conclude my points.
Okay, so I have actually 10 questions, but I will stop it here. But let's assume for us to change this mindset, I think all of us are actually speaking, as an ecosystem, what we should do. And maybe, one thought, maybe from each one of you, but very short, because I think we have a very less time. But I think something which each one of us can take away, that if we, let's say, want to change this thought, what do we do, right? I mean,
you started
yeah.
because you didn't
Yeah.
speak in the
Yeah.
second round. No, he started.
So here I'd like to, sorry? Quick one, very quick one. Here I'd like to try and understand where they're coming. So for the startups, incubator cells that you have all across IITs and IIMs, go to them. Second is try and understand where the CSR person is coming from. So for example, if you're working in healthcare and education, like most people are, it's always a great idea to see what the hook is out there. If the hook is brand recognition, is it volunteering, is it visibility? So you try and figure out what works, what ticks for the CSR person, get your leg into the door like we were discussing, and then take it forward. So I think find your hook is what I'd like to end it with.
And I can add like 2 points. One is demonstrate success stories. Demonstrate, like you said, like still going back to your like less than 1%, right? What has happened with that less than 1%? That has not been made visible to the ecosystem. So demonstrate the success stories that has made a change into the community through investment of CSR and R&D. That has to be big time blown up everywhere. And involve us in more such conversations, more people to come on board, talk, and provoke them to start thinking. That's another thing.
Yeah. I think
So from an incubator's perspective, I think co-creation is the most important part. That's when you get buy-in from CSR, you establish your value addition to the entire process. And like he says, you will be able to clearly establish what you have been able to achieve in terms of impact with the help of CSR. But co-create it all.
Sanjay sir.
So I have 2 takeaways as well. CSR should be patient capital in my mind. So, in my perspective, the first decade, like everyone said, or even the first 5 or 6 years in India, CSR has gotten to a point where the low-hanging fruit has slowly gotten over, and now you're moving more into R&D. So CSR now needs to fund those projects which make the most impact to at least starting from our nation. And whether I think someone brought up air pollution, I mean, there's so many impact areas that we have. And I think investing in R&D makes the most sense for that. And that's really my vision. I am with you. If that number is 1%, 2%, even 10%, I don't care. I want that to be at 20%, 25%, 30% at the very least.
At Capgemini, this is upward of 40%. So that I know on the innovation, on R&D, on incubation support, this is more than 40% or so. It will only happen when you start weaving it with the problems that India is facing today. It cannot be standalone. It cannot be that I'll be doing, suddenly a professor gets a dream that I'll do research on this and CSR should fund it. It will never happen. The moment this is weaved it with the problem that people are facing, you will have a number of people who will be funding it. Second is network it hard. For example, I have not met professors from many IITs till now. And they may be crying that the R&D money is not coming to them, because there are, within the CSR space also, there are people who are influencers. So influencers do not exist only at the Instagram level. There are influencers also within the system itself. And if you're not meeting those people, which means that you're not really reaching out to the people who can influence the discourse of capital reaching out to you there. At the moment that starts happening there, then you'll find many people who will be interested to fund some of these activities there. Because deep down, every CSR head are looking for solutions which have the potential to impact more number of people there.
I agree.
So that's the important part that we all need to understand there. And third is make it as inclusive as possible. Don't make it one individual's baby or two individuals' baby there. Because I'll give you one example there and I'll rest my case. During COVID time, we funded one of the research institutions with around 4 CR funding for COVID vaccine work there. And there was one celebrity who funded that institution with 10 lakh ka check. That celebrity picture came on the cover page of the newsletter of that particular institution. Our mention was in 2 lines there. So if you treat that particular money with 2 lines there and 10 lakh with the full page there, people will never reach out to that particular institution with any new funding there. And that has happened with that particular institution as far as ours is concerned. So we need to somewhere find a balance also. Start Shark Tank, 5 lakh gets a huge visibility there. 50 lakh, no equity gets no visibility there. So we'll have to somewhere find a balance. If we don't find a balance there, we'll be crying over this particular thing कि R&D में पैसा नहीं आता, R&D पैसा आएगा ही नहीं sir उसके ऊपर.
Thank you so much. I think I learned a lot from today's conversation. As I said, I had 10 questions. I only asked 2 of them. That also, the second one was not complete. But now we had 10 minutes for audience to actually ask questions. So audience, I'm requesting, if you have any questions, please ask.
Good evening. First of all, I thank Hindu and SRM for organizing such a wonderful event. And the panel is also wonderful. All of you contributed very well for the topic we have selected here. My point is, see, already it is mandatory that each corporate, that is the corporate which is coming under that particular condition, that turnover and profit, they have to do CSR funding. It is a compulsory. When that is there, what I suggest, corporates like Capgemini and Cognizant, they can even plan like what is the CSR plan for that year. So what is the activity they are going to consider, whether in terms of R&D or in terms of activity, so that an NGO or R&Ds, whoever is involved in this particular activity, they can contact these corporates. This is my one suggestion. So I want maybe some of your input on that. And second point is ESG. So ESG also has become mandatory. That is also to be reported by almost all these corporates. Whoever is involved in CSR funding, they have to also report on mandatory ESG. Is there any link between the CSR funding and ESG followed by the corporates?
Sir, I'll take your question, sir. Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
So, like you said, it is mandated. And after 2021 Ministry of Corporate Affairs amendment, every corporate is supposed to establish something called annual action plan. So that annual action plan clearly talks about what is our anticipated spend for this year and what is our quarterly spend. And typically, by guidelines, the annual action plan should be finished and it should be published in the website also. A lot of corporates publish it on the website that this is how my spend is going to be for the rest of the year.
It is mandatory.
It is.
Everyone need to do it.
Everyone need to do, but still that evolution is happening. Not every website is there, but a lot of corporates are still putting annual action plan for rest of the year is there, sir. So your recommendation, I think the Ministry of Corporate Affairs heard it long back, and then 2021 they mandated it. A lot of corporates, you go to their website, they'll have it. And to your second question about ESG and CSR, the correlation, right? So ESG is environmental, social, governance. Under social, you taking care of your employees and all of that, employee health, wellness and whom you hire, diversity and all of those comes into place. One of the component under S of ESG is taking care of the community or giving back to community. So CSR is not something standalone, ESG is not something standalone. ESG is a framework where CSR is one small component under ESG. So when we report our ESG report, what we did to the community is also accounted in the ESG report. So that's how it should be looked at, sir. I hope I answered your question. Okay. Ma'am, you had a question.
As part of Women Empowerment Organization, I have had the privilege to work with Anurag Pratap and Rajashri Natarajan of Cognizant also. And amazing work. CSR has been extremely supportive of our innovative programs. Now that I've moved into a startup arena, I have this question in CSR for NGOs. NGOs have these credibility certificates, Credibility Alliance, GuideStar India, different neutral bodies that can certify the NGOs being transparent and doing impactful work. This is just a question in my mind, some kind of certification body of that sort for incubators and startups. Will that help corporate CSR to be more confident about funding an organization of that sort? Thank you.
I'll give you a different analogy there. It's like during marriages, people buy Manish Malhotra lehengas there or Tarun Talani lehengas there. And there are people who will go there and buy from any market there, and marriages happen there. Same is with CSR also. I am not hugely in favor of adding any additional cost to the implementation there, because all these credibility bodies who come in there, they have a fees and they have a revenue attached to that particular thing. I do not want my money to go in some of these processes there. We have our own people there who will go, who will see, because whether you wear Manish Malhotra or anyone's ensemble there, marriages, whether it's going to last or not, is going to be dependent on how you relate with the other partner there. Same with CSR. Whether Credibility Alliance or GuideStar or CAF or someone else has done the credibility analysis of yours or not, it all depends on how you handle my money, which I'll be giving it to you. It all depends on how we are relating with the fund which is reaching out to me, and how I'm doing that in a manner which gives huge amount of satisfaction, not just to community, but also to the NGO and also to the funder who is funding that particular activity there. So all these three, if they are happy, everything is happy there. If you bring in other brands there, if you have money, you can always do all those stuff there. But what Cognizant did, what Capgemini did, or many other corporates have done that particular thing is, it all depends on what kind of NGOs we are identifying, what kind of causes that we are investing in, and what kind of, I'll say, patience that I'm having to see those changes to happen. Because social development is not like making 2-minute noodle. You should have the patience of, I always give this example that you can have noodles and you can have biryanis also. But which will give you more satisfaction, end of the day? Biryani takes huge amount of time there. Same is with the change and impact. You need to be invested in that particular area for longer period of time. You can't look at impact within 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, and 1.5 years there. If you are not invested there, you should not talk about impact there. The problem with the new act, the new change or amendment which talks about looking at impact after 1 year investment there, which I find it very, very shady there. But it has given business to a new breed which has come in there, and they are known as consultancy groups there, who are doing a large-scale impact assessment within 3 lakh rupees. Because the funding which is available to you is only 50 lakh. And for example, at Capgemini side, I have this year around 18 projects going in for impact studies. 50 lakh is the budget there. How will I do justice to that particular thing? So we are just going to, I'll say, create reports which will be good for external world, but it's not going to give you the kind of result that you are really seeking. That 50 lakh could have changed number of girl child life and fortune there if I've invested that particular money in someone's education there. That's the kind of priority that I always look at whenever I'm looking at some of these frills which comes in the implementation there.
If I may add, is there a body? Can there be a body? Yes, eventually somebody will definitely evolve and it will become a business model. No, for startups, sir.
Startups also, there are few who give you
certificates. Yeah. So from a CSR point of view, ma'am, there is still, clarity is missing, right? So you're a startup, and why should I become a seed funding to you? Eventually, 2 years down the lane, 3 years down the lane, you may become for profit. You will make profit. So why should I become a seed investment for a business that is going to evolve, right? So are you a Section 8 company? Are you a registered trust? So in what form you come to CSR is really matters. So that is very, very, still it is very dicey at this moment. If you ask me, like, will you fund, as an individual, not as a Cognizant. As an individual, if you ask me, will you fund, if I have a CSR fund and if I will go and fund a startup, I might think twice, because 2 years down the line he's going to make, obviously that business might pick up, they might make profit, and why would I invest a seed funding from a CSR fund while people are still crying for food and healthcare is not accessible for everybody? Why would I become a seed investor for a startup? So that is still very, very dicey. So it will evolve, obviously, I was telling.
If there is a startup that rolls out product that will reach a common man, the delivery down the line, will that interest?
No, it will definitely interest. It will definitely interest if it is, like sir was telling, the maximum fund that I'm going to invest through CSR has to reach to the community. Okay. So that's what sir was telling, like the admin fee, the debate around how much is admin fee. If other cost overheads are reduced and if it is going to reach the community at large, we'll be happy to invest. That's the ground rule. Maximum money should go to the community.
Guys, any questions? I think, are you guys awake or what is it?
No, there were claps.
Thank you, thank you.
There were claps to end the session, I think.
Guys, I'm telling it to you, you will never find an opportunity to talk to this panelist. They are the most experienced one. Ask them questions. I think clarify if there is anything in your mind. Yeah, I think somebody raised.
No questions.
Are there no further questions?
No questions. No, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much for being part of this panel. I would personally like to thank each one of you. I learned a lot of new things, sir, from all of you today, right? And I assure it to you, I will keep calling you up to learn more. Right? Thank you so much. Right. The best. Yeah.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists and our moderator as well. Can we have another big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you.